Hey, thanks for checking out this podcast. Our hope is that it's an encouragement to you, that it builds your faith, that it helps you be a better leader and a better influencer in and through your life. If this is helpful to you, we'd love you to subscribe and also share it with somebody else to encourage them too. Thanks.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good day. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Welcome to the VC podcast. We are so excited to have you today. Today, we are starting our series on leadership.
Yeah, leadership. And partly why we're excited about the podcast is just that this is a chance for us to talk together, chat about what we're learning and what we've learned. But more than that, to hopefully invite a community of people to be on the learning journey, right? That's what disciples are. They're learners,
Totally.
They're growers. So it's just fun to do this, to keep learning. We keep picking different areas that we feel are areas that would be good for disciples of Jesus to grow in.
Yeah, so if you're following after Jesus or if you're just exploring, this is the perfect podcast for you. We want to help you find your next step.
Right.
And so if you find us on this episode, maybe your next step is to figure out what leadership is or figure out how you can be a leader.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if you want, you can go back, listen to some of our podcasts, because we've really had a pretty cool progression of just, okay, next step along your faith journey and along your life journey.
Yeah. So cool. Today's leadership episode is called What is Leadership?
Right.
We really want this episode to be broad, general, and clear, and to help you understand what leadership is, what role it plays in the Christian's life, and how we can learn in this area to be more effective in every aspect of our life.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get into it. You hear the term leadership a lot, and I think it gets thrown out as one of those funny words that can be almost meaningless because we don't dig down into and develop it. We just leave it as this like generic word that sounds good.
So let's just start.
Okay.
What is leadership?
What is it? It is? How do we define it? Influence.
Influence.
Yeah.
So leadership is influence. What we mean by that is everyone to some capacity is influenced by people who are leading. Whether that's the person next to you or the person in charge of you or the person that you're in charge of, people lead one another by having influence.
Right.
Some people have more influence than others, but ultimately everyone has influence, and leadership is literally the study of or the act of influencing someone else towards a goal.
Yeah, so I think a lot of times in life, we don't accept that we have influence. We don't acknowledge that we have influence, or we're not aware that we have influence.
Right.
So then, because of that, we just feel like victims.
Right.
Or we just sort of bounce aimlessly through life. So when you accept leadership, or you accept the idea of influence, you start to take responsibility, and you start to take ownership, you start to take agency, the sense of like, I can do something about it. So let me give you a simple example. If we had a 3-year-old in our room with us right now, they would have influence.
Yep.
Right? Like a 3-year-old in this room would be influencing the room.
Yep.
Their attitude, their behavior, their cuteness, their whininess, their joy, their upsetness, they would just be influencing. And have huge influence. You would know this because you got a couple beautiful little kids.
Yeah.
Not quite 3. How old are your kids?
August is 3.
3, yeah.
August
he
is
is
3,
there.
yeah.
Okay. So you got a 3-year-old and an almost 1.
He is 1 and 3 months now.
Woo!
Yeah.
So 3 and 1.
Yeah.
And that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Those 2 kids, when they're in the room, they have massive influence.
Totally.
But they're largely unaware of it. Right?
Yep.
So they're exerting leadership, quote unquote, in the room, but unaware. And what we want as they mature, and as all of us mature, is we want ourselves to become aware that we're affecting our own environment, we're affecting our own future, we're affecting others, and we're affecting ourselves. It's the difference between a plankton and a fish.
So all of us SpongeBob watchers pictured something. Can you define what a plankton is?
So a plankton is like a little piece of green cells that floats around in the water, but it has no efficacy. It has no agency. It
It's
just
not influencing anything. It's just there.
right. It just is there, and it just goes with the
It's
flow.
a bottom feeder.
Right, and it's a victim of whatever
Yeah.
circumstances it's in. It
Yeah.
moves with the currents. It does whatever. But a fish has agency. You
Yeah.
know, a fish may think it doesn't and
Right.
act like a plankton.
Right.
Right? It may just, but anyway. So there's your.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
leadership is influence.
Leadership is influence. And, we'll talk about the why here in a couple questions. But the first one is what? What is influence? Leadership is influence.
Right. What is leadership?
What is
leadership? Is influence.
Leadership is influence. Who is leadership for? Who leads? And who is leading? Who are we leading?
Right.
And the quick answer is everyone. Just like we mentioned, everyone has impact on their environment.
Yeah.
Everyone has impact on the room.
Totally.
So how are you going to use it?
So the everyone is really important because we assume leadership is a title or a position, right? Whereas if leadership is influence, then everyone has influence, like our 3-year-old and our 1-year-old, right? So it's each of us taking acceptance of or acknowledgement of the influence I have, and we go, wow, I'm a leader, and that matters, right?
Yep. Yeah. You don't have to have a position that has leadership under the job description to have leadership. Everyone has leadership. And I think that's a really important thing. Every single person listening to this podcast, you can control how you influence others.
Yeah.
And you are a leader. You are leading people.
Totally.
And here's the why. Here's why leadership is important. It's because we want to lead people towards life change, towards Jesus, towards growth.
So kids, you're leading your parents.
Yep.
Parents, you're leading your kids. Husbands and wives, you're leading one another. We are all leading each other all the time. Friends, you're leading your friends, whether you know it or not. So that's the piece.
Yep.
So everyone. Sorry, keep going.
No,
What's
absolutely.
the next question?
The next question is why?
Okay.
Why is leadership important? Because leadership is influencing everyone towards life change.
Right, okay.
So towards life change, towards a goal, and for the Christian, it's ultimately towards Jesus.
Yeah.
So we want to draw people and influence people towards Jesus, towards their next step.
Right, because that's the definition of a disciple, right? A disciple, because they're learning about Jesus, their role in life, their goal in life, their mission in life is to influence others towards Jesus.
Absolutely.
Right, which is, again, another word for that, to lead others towards Jesus or use leadership.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so the way I think about this is the reason that I go out of my way to grow and to be influential in the spaces that I go into, the reason I do it is because I feel as though I can make a difference.
Yeah.
I can make a change and I can help.
Right. So now the why here is a really, really critical piece that I think we have to really work on for our whole lives.
Yeah.
So we've got the what, it's influence. We've got the who, it's everyone. That means you and me are influencers, and every person listening to this is an influencer. But why are you influencing?
Right.
Right. And I think sometimes we influence to get our own way.
Right.
To make a name for ourselves.
Right.
To have fun.
So what you're saying is not all leadership is good. Not all influence is good influence.
Yeah. And so you've heard me riff before on the difference between leadership and manipulation.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
So manipulation is influencing for my own good.
Wow.
Influencing you for me, for my sake.
Right.
Right? And true leadership, or godly, biblical, Christian leadership, is influencing for the other, which brings me to Scripture. So Jesus one time was talking to his disciples, and the disciples are getting fired up about their positions, their own sort of leadership titles and importance, self-importance, and so on. So Jesus realizes, you guys are thinking wrong about your life, and you're thinking your why is for your own ends. And so he teaches this. When the 10 other disciples, this is Matthew 20, verse 24, heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. But Jesus called them together. So he hears this competing for position and importance and making a name for themselves and so on. And he says, you know that the rulers of this world lord it over people, and the officials, that's like leaders, flaunt their authority over those under them. So that's how leadership works in the world, Jesus says, but among you, it will be different. So there should be something fundamentally different about a follower of Jesus. Whoever wants to be a leader among you, so if you want to have influence, if you want to be important, if you want to have authority, whatever you want to call that, must be your servant. And this, tell you, nowadays we hear those terms, servant leadership and so on, but in Jesus' day, this was so radical.
Right.
And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. Right. So Jesus is flipping leadership around and saying the why is for others' sake.
Right.
It's for service. It's to bless. It's to give.
Right.
Really, it's to love.
Yeah.
And so the why of Christian leadership is radically important. And we just have to always search our motives and say, because there's always going to be, we're mixed bags of motives.
Right.
So we're always working on this why piece to increasingly be selfless, generous, sacrificial, leaders for the other's good.
That's huge. And I think that's, for everyone listening, that I think that might, if you take away one thing, it would be that you need to lead in a way that's selfless, that's for the other's good.
For the other.
And the ultimate good for the others is towards Jesus.
Yes.
And it's really hard. I could go on. But it's so important that we know the why and that we wrap our heads around that.
Right. So if I learn skills of influence in my marriage, but I use them so that my wife is a better wife for me, I have now been manipulating her for my own ends.
Yeah.
But if I use my skills for influence for her sake, to help her be a better person, happier, or to serve her, to lay down my life for her, now I'm using my influence
to lead.
For a good why, right? For love.
Wow.
And same with the way as a child you relate to your parent, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to use the skills of influence to help my parent be a better person.
Right.
To help my friend be a better person, to help this and that. And ultimately, like you said, the ultimate good for anyone is to get closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
So,
That's huge. So this next question, and I think this might take up the rest of our time for the most part, is how? So if we want to influence everyone, and we want to influence everyone for their good, how do we do it? And I think it's by being helpful with what you have.
Sure, that's a great way to say it.
By using what you have to help.
Right.
And here's the deal, I think we've mentioned this before, but everyone in their life has a sense of God has given you things.
Yeah.
And there's this parable in the Bible where God gives these three different guys a different amount of money. He gives this guy 5, gives this guy 10, this guy 15. I'm probably getting the numbers wrong, but you get the gist. The guy with 15 invests it all and makes a lot of money and uses what he has. It's good. The second guy uses money, gets a lot. The last guy takes what he has, does nothing with it.
Right.
And it does not go well for him.
Yeah.
But those who had a little and did everything they could with the little or a lot, everyone who did something with what they had was blessed in the story. And I think similarly in our lives, you are given things in your life, whether that's the people around you, the resources you have, the skills, the talents you have.
Yep.
You're given a setup.
Right. You have something to offer.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a really caring and merciful person.
Sure. Yeah, you have your gifts.
So you have that to bring to the people around you to influence them for good.
Yep.
Or maybe you're not very merciful, but you're very good at being honest with people and telling them the truth that they need to hear.
Yeah.
So
or maybe you have all these gifts and you only have 2 or 3 people that you can influence.
Right.
I can relate as a parent that as soon as I became a parent, my circle of influence drastically shrunk in terms of potential, especially my wife's lifestyle now.
Yep.
Where a big thing in our house is we bring this up probably once a week is what has God given me to influence, and I'll talk about a few people in my life, and she'll talk about our kids and a couple friends that she has.
Yep.
And ultimately, the verse we always go back to, for those who do something, who do a lot with what little I give, I will give more to.
Right.
I believe that's a Matthew verse, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically do something with what you've got,
Yep.
and God will give you more.
Yeah, be faithful with the little,
Yeah.
and God gives you more, right?
Yeah.
With the little you have.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is all of us are just called to be faithful with what we've got.
Yeah.
So sometimes we wish we had more,
Sure.
but the truth is that just means more stewardship, more responsibility,
Oof.
a heavier weight to carry.
Yeah.
So the people who have more sometimes are wishing they had less, and the people who had less are wishing they had more. And the answer is
Yeah.
stop wishing you had less or more and start just being a blessing with what you got, right?
Yeah.
Using what you've got to serve others.
Yeah, so the how, a quick tip about this is identify an area of your life that you would like to push towards growth.
Yeah.
So whether that's a friend group, whether that's your youth group, your young adults group, your church, your small group.
Yeah.
And instead of identifying the problem and being loud about the problem,
Right.
identify an area of growth and just do it.
Yeah.
So you think, man, I wish this place was more friendly.
Yeah.
Go be friendly.
Right. Right.
And there's other ways to do it.
Okay, so this gets to the complexity of leadership,
Yes.
which is why we're going to need more parts.
We're going to need more parts. This is
Because-
not the last week of our leadership.
Right, because
stuff,
the
yeah.
how of leadership, it's so funny, but the way we're wired, right? We think,
Yeah.
okay, I'm a leader, I'm supposed to lead, I have influence, where's the people I influence? Okay, where am I going to get them to go? Okay, well, I want Jeremy to go from where he is, to over there, so I'm going to, walk over to him, grab him, drag him over there, and put him there. Now I've done my job. And of course, the reality is if I do that, you're
not
going
gonna
to
work.
resist, it's not going to work, it's going to cause problems,
Yeah.
it's going to backfire on me.
Totally.
And so the how of leadership is a whole bunch of skill sets
It's delicate.
that we can, that are complex,
Yeah.
but that are fun and beautiful to learn and work on, and we all get to work on them over time. So there's be an example, right?
Yep.
There's self-leadership, there's getting vision and casting vision, using dreams and values, and there's so many things
Yeah.
we could talk about.
Absolutely.
Communication,
Yep.
in the how of leadership, we could go on, and we will. We'll take some time in the coming weeks to walk through some of the how, because it's frustrating, right? You think, I want to bless my wife, I
Yep.
want to influence my wife for good, but how, right?
Yep.
Because so many times we think every time I try, it backfires.
Yep.
Or, I want to be a blessing to my kids as
Yeah.
a parent,
Yeah.
but how? How do
do
I
I do
lead
it?
my kids
Yeah.
well?
Yeah. And so that question of how, we're going to start next week with leading yourself.
Yeah.
So leadership starts in your own heart.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to talk about
Gotta
next
lead
week.
yourself well before you can lead others well.
Absolutely. So we hope this podcast was helpful to kind of get your head around what leadership is.
Yeah.
And in the coming weeks, we hope to help you become a stronger leader.
Indeed. And just to reiterate from the beginning,
Yeah.
discipleship and leadership,
Yeah.
they're intimately intertwined.
Absolutely.
Because you're a follower of Jesus, then you're called to be an influencer, use your influence, and really help others along
So if
that
you put
growth
all
journey.
the answers to our questions,
Let's do it.
leadership is influence everyone toward life change by being helpful with what you have wherever you are.
Love it. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great week, everyone.